And I say, hey!
Arthur Reed is building a model airplane because it's 1999 and Minecraft won't be a thing for 10 years. DW sees this as a golden opportunity to pester the crap out of her brother. Over the next several days, DW makes Arthur's life a living hell as he spends God knows how many hours perfecting the one possession his little sister has yet to ruin. Finally, the model is finished, and Arthur makes the foolish mistake of letting it out of his sight. Because the instant DW has the chance, she throws it out the goddamn window. When it breaks, DW impulsively blames Arthur for making a shitty plane, which is like blaming Caesar for not having knife-proof skin. DW continues to taunt her brother as he weeps over the shattered remains of his painstaking efforts, leading to one of the most cathartic moments in television history.
It's not my fault if you made a plane that can't fly.
I told you not to touch it!
DW runs crying to her mom like the snitch she is. The Reed parents are Team DW, as they instantly take side without even asking her how the model broke in the first place.
How did it happen? Did you not see it? Were you fucking with it?
DW continues to play the victim as she hurls one final insult at her brother.
You're bad.
What a bitch. Arthur's parents ground his ass. They promise that DW will also be punished, which we never see carried out. The next day at school, Buster is somehow surprised that Arthur would take a swing at his sister when just a few days ago he said this.
I never thought about it before, but being an only child is nice.
Binky and his band of bullies overhear what happened, leading to the revelation that Binky has never actually hit anyone. The bullies order Binky to kick the crap out of Arthur, otherwise he'll be kicked out of their club. In class, we see Arthur's friends are also for Team DW, as if none of them have spent 5 minutes with the 4-year-old Hellspawn. Meanwhile, Binky goes to scrupulous lengths to avoid Arthur, even though he could just lie to the other bullies and say he punched him at any time. But whatever, we gotta fill 11 minutes somehow. That afternoon, Binky walks home with the other bullies when, surprise, surprise, Arthur shows up. Backed into a corner, Binky the Bulldog punches Arthur and then runs away like a thoroughbred pussy. Arthur's parents have no sympathy for their son who, unlike DW, got his ass kicked for no good reason. Instead of calling the school to have Binky expelled, they gaslight Arthur into believing this was a teachable moment. Blow me. Drinking his parents' Kool-Aid, Arthur gives DW an unearned apology. In return, she gives him a half-assed apology and even then manages to fuck it the fuck up.
But what kind of a stupid plane doesn't fly?
A model plane?
Well, I didn't know. I'm just a child. Give me a break.
What a bitch. The next day, we see Binky racked with guilt over what he did. Lucky for him, Arthur is now thoroughly brainwashed and thanks Binky for beating the shit out of him. Let's review. DW repeatedly messed with Arthur's model plane despite being asked several times to leave it alone. When she threw the model out the window, she tried to make Arthur think it was his fault that it broke. After pushing the plane and her brother over the edge, she instantly played the victim and was never punished for what she did. When Arthur got a far worse beatdown, she just stood there and grinned like a goddamn psychopath. And even after Arthur apologized for hitting her, she still refused to accept responsibility for her actions. F you, DW.
And I say, hey!
And you know what they say about snitches? Stitches, I believe, are involved.
And I say, hey!
It's baby Kate's first birthday, and the Reed house is throwing a weak-ass party. DW brags that Kate is her favorite sibling. Arthur calls BS. He reminds DW that she's treated Kate like crap since the day she was born. Flashbacks ensue. The Reed parents return from the hospital with baby Kate, and the first thing DW does is scream in her ear.
Let me see. Let me see. Let me see.
Shh. DW refuses to let the baby out of her sight, going so far as to listen to her breathe while she sleeps.
Inhale. Exhale.
What the fuck? DW tries to give baby Kate a bath. Luckily, her father's seen The Good Son enough times to nix that shit on the spot.
Hey, Mark. Don't fuck with me.
DW is convinced her parents don't know what the hell they're doing. Mrs. Reed leaves the baby alone with DW, proving she doesn't know what the hell she's doing. Kate drops her binky, and DW immediately makes things worse. Kate is now crying, but DW refuses to let anyone console her, because she'd rather let her baby sister suffer than let anyone else take credit for saving the day. DW continues to make things worse. Arthur remains level-headed, and manages to calm down his baby sister. Everyone praises Arthur for his nurturing instinct, while DW's ego suffers a major blow. The Reed parents move Kate's crib into DW's room, proving once again neither of them know what the hell they're doing. DW is thrilled, until she discovers that babies spend most of their time crying and shitting. Now she's losing sleep, and all of her toys smell like baby ass. Huh, maybe it wasn't the best idea to have a newborn and a 4-year-old share the same bedroom. Kate's crying causes DW to lose more sleep, driving her batshit insane. DW conspires with the Tibble twins to get rid of baby Kate. The Tibbles tell her to blame Kate for various accidents, in the hopes her parents will stop loving their own baby. Lucky for Kate, DW is terrible at the blame game.
How did my new shoes get in the dishwasher?
Kate did it. I saw her.
He sees right through her BS and grounds her lying ass on the spot. The next day, at a garage sale, DW attempts to sell baby Kate to her neighbor for 50 cents.
Okay, 35 cents, but it's my final offer.
The neighbor snitches on DW's scheme. DW rushes to hide the evidence. Realizing she can't get rid of baby Kate, DW decides to run away, the first sensible decision she's made in her entire life. She goes to Grandma Thora's house and guilts her into driving to the nearest island. Grandma Thora indulges her granddaughter's delusional fantasy, as she's eager to be rid of the pretentious preschooler. She drives DW to the waterfront, rents a boat, and rows her out to the island, while DW never lifts a goddamn finger. For some absurd reason, Grandma Thora tries to talk DW out of running away. She reminds DW that Kate will need someone to look up to as she gets older. DW assumes she's talking about her. With her ego now thoroughly stroked, DW rushes home and vows to groom Kate in her image. Let's review. DW spent several weeks stalking her newborn sister's every move. When Kate got upset, DW made it worse by trying to play the hero. When DW finally got what she wanted, she screamed raw deal the second she realized living with a baby isn't all peaches and cream. She then tried to get rid of Kate by blaming her for stupid shit and trying to sell her for pocket change. When all of that failed, she emotionally manipulated her grandma into helping her run away. And it was only when she realized the baby might grow up without her corrupting influence that she returned home to ensure Kate grows up to be a narcissistic sociopath. Just like her. F you, DW.
And I say, hey. And I say, hey.
Arthur is worried DW is becoming a psychopath, as evidenced by her obsession with a snowball in the freezer. One day, the snowball goes missing, and DW instantly loses her shit. Her mom comes in to find her crying literal tears of ice. Mrs. Reed tells DW to cut that shit out and get over herself. DW rebuffs, claiming the snowball represented the best day of her life, which mostly consisted of chucking snowballs at her family and one failed murder attempt by Arthur. Better luck next time, Arthur. DW admits to obsessing over the snowball for a whole year, refusing to let it out of her sight. Mrs. Reed ignores this obvious red flag and says she doesn't know who took the snowball. DW instinctively points the finger at Arthur. To be fair, he did try to kill her. Once. DW runs up to Arthur's room and completely destroys the place in 5 seconds flat. Buster is intrigued by DW's paranoia and decides to play detective. DW says she last saw the snowball yesterday, right before Grandma Thora stopped by for a visit. DW then perjures herself by claiming that Grandma Thora was happy to see her. Arthur calls DW on her BS and describes an equally narcissistic, but slightly more realistic scene.
Get me an aspirin. She's giving me a splitting headache.
Surprise, surprise, it's Grandma Thora. DW lays on what little charm she has to get Grandma Thora on her side. Grandma Thora and Mrs. Reed are so desperate to avoid this bullcrap, they're magically transported from the kitchen to the front door. Grandma Thora reminds everyone that she was invited for ice cream. DW jumps to the logical conclusion that the dog used an umbrella to open the freezer and eat the snowball. Francine calls DW on her BS. She tells her own narcissistic version of events in which Buster is the culprit. Buster pulls a reverse Uno and makes Francine look like the culprit. Desperate for a culprit, DW blames all three of them and tries to pull a Brendan Dassey on her brother.
I want a confession. Confess. Confess.
Buster claims there's only one logical answer. Aliens. Buster points out that the plate the snowball was on is also missing, a fact that nobody follows up on. DW accuses everyone of conspiring against her, as everybody blames each other for the stupidest crime ever conceived. Mr. Reed, who hasn't been in the whole episode and is obviously the culprit, comes in and diffuses the situation by pointing to the snow outside. When DW laments that she'll never know what happened to the snowball, Arthur does what he should have done 11 minutes ago, and points out that it doesn't fucking matter. Also, it's revealed aliens took the snowball or whatever, but seriously, it was definitely the dad. Let's review. DW lost her goddamn mind over a misplaced ball of ice that she'd been obsessing over for a year. She automatically blamed Arthur and destroyed his room trying to find it. She wasted 5 people's time in her pointless investigation into an equally pointless crime. She jumped to unrealistic conclusions and inspired everyone else to do the same. When she couldn't prove who did it, she tried to force a confession out of her brother. And in the end, none of it even mattered, because there probably never was any snowball. It was probably just a hallucination she cooked up in her demented, psychotic brain. F you, DW.
And I say, hey.
Not sure if it's Daisy or Dassy. We will find out.
say,
Arthur is watching Nova when DW enters his line of vision. Arthur is so used to DW's shit, he predicts everything she says right before she says it. Francine keeps DW from eavesdropping on her conversation by spelling words instead of saying them. Because DW is so illiterate, she should change her middle name from Winifred to Can't. Arthur tells his parents he wants to see the latest Michael Bay movie.
5,000 explosions and a supernova? It's got science in it, okay?
DW also wants to see the movie, but Arthur says she's not smart enough to understand it. DW claims she's just as smart as her brother, despite moments ago admitting she can't read. DW schmoozes with the brain so she can learn how to make Arthur even more of her bitch. DW takes a liking to science once she realizes she can use it to demonstrate superiority over others. DW makes fun of Arthur for taking more time to do his homework than the smartest kid in school. Arthur tells his parents DW is being a pain in the ass. DW refutes his claim by acting like a know-it-all pain in the ass. Arthur plans to go to the new science center with the brain. DW also wants to go, but Arthur and his parents say hell no. DW goes into full sociopath mode as she uses an ominous monotone to warn Arthur that she plans to get the best of him.
Arthur, my theory is someday you're going to be begging to go to the Explorarium with me.
The next day, DW is charging kids to see her backyard sideshow. She tells Arthur to cough up $5 if he wants to see his own backyard. Instead of cutting through the house, Arthur hands over everything in his pocket, including a picture of a horse's ass, a fitting description of what he'll become by the end of the episode. DW takes the group on our own educational carnival and proceeds to plant misinformation in their impressionable minds. Arthur tries to refute her pseudoscience, only to be met with cries of fake news from DW and indifference from kids who don't know any better. Arthur brings the brain in to stomp out the monster he helped create. DW is making bank as the line for her Museum of Misinformation stretches down the block. The Tibble twins are so excited for the exhibit, they magically transport from the middle of the line to the backyard in under 2 seconds. The brain explains that there are books and studies that can call DW on her BS. DW once again cries fake news. Falling directly into DW's trap, Arthur begs his parents to let DW go with him to the science exhibit. When Arthur confronts DW about her scientific fallacies, she admits she purposely spread misinformation so she could trick Arthur into inviting her to the exhibit. Arthur stares in awe of his sister, who not only tricked him, but also dozens of kids with her intentional use of pseudoscience and managed to profit off the whole endeavor. Let's review. DW became hell-bent on proving she was smarter than her brother, despite the fact that she can't read. She cozied up to his smartest friend to try and make herself look smarter. When Arthur told her she couldn't go to a science exhibit with him, she purposefully spread misinformation to dozens of young children just so she could trick him into changing his mind. And even after she got exactly what she wanted, she made no effort to undo the damage she did and likely stunted several of her peers' educational development. F you, DW.
and I say, hey, what a wonder, and I say, hey.
It's Halloween, and DW is driving Arthur insane with her squeaky, high-pitched hiccups. Arthur tries to scare her by dressing as a time traveler from 2020. Boo! While designing his own lame-ass costume, Arthur suffers through DW's incessant hiccups. She tries holding her breath, but can't even do that right. What a bitch. Arthur is so distraught that he heads straight to the library without cleaning DW's spit off his shirt. Gross. The brain suggests scaring DW with loud, obnoxious noises, which is like trying to scare John Wayne Gacy with pictures of clowns. It's been 3 days, and DW's hiccups are only getting worse. Instead of taking her to a pediatrician, the Reed parents just tell her to knock that shit off. DW gives Arthur a list of everything she's scared of, which looks like it was written by someone who majored in manifestos. Her fears include octopi, good cartoons, and eating gingerbread men, which apparently makes her feel like she's eating a real person. Dahmer Winifred Reed loses her shit after eating the cookie and burps in Arthur's face. Gross. DW tries to scare herself one last time by giving her favorite toy to the Tibble twins, because the only thing that truly scares DW is the concept of sharing. Surprise, surprise, it doesn't work. DW worries she'll be stuck with the hiccups for the next 70 years. God forbid this demon child makes it past the age of 7. Everyone is dressed up for trick-or-treating except for DW, who still manages to be the scariest one in the room. The Reed parents are... What the fuck is going on here? Mrs. Reed trips over a lamp, which somehow turns off all the lights in the house. Arthur appears in his weak-ass costume, spooking DW. DW berates her brother for scaring her, which is the one thing she asked him to do. As luck would have it, this manages to get rid of her hiccups for real. Unfortunately for Arthur, the hiccups have now been passed to him, continuing the curse's vicious cycle and... Okay, he definitely wears that sandwich suit in the bedroom. You can't convince me otherwise. Let's review. DW drove everyone crazy with her endless stream of hiccups. When Arthur tried to help get rid of them, she thanked him by spitting and burping in his face. She dragged her brother all over town, which proved to be a colossal waste of time. When Arthur did manage to scare the hiccups out of her, she yelled at him for doing exactly what she asked him to do. And in the end, none of it even mattered, because the writers liked this plotline so much, they reused it several times throughout the show. Happy Halloween! And F you, DW.
And I say, hey,
She thanked him by spitting and burping in his face. Kinda like that.
and I say, hey.
Miracle of miracles, DW has lost her voice. Better late than ever, God. Arthur takes advantage of the moment by telling her off directly to her face. He dreams of a utopia in which DW never speaks again, a dream the brain says could become a reality.
It could be more than a few days, Arthur. People can inexplicably lose their vocal facility for months, years even.
Don't you do that! Don't you give me false hope like that! Francine tells Arthur he's being too mean, which is like the pot calling the kettle a bitch. Arthur learns DW will be sick in bed for several days. His jubilee is short-lived, however, once his mom makes him DW's slave. Over the next 4 days, DW becomes an outright tyrant, forcing Arthur to fulfill her every request, while Mrs. Reed does jack shit. One afternoon, Arthur discovers DW has been faking her laryngitis the whole time.
Now you have to go to the hospital and get 600 stitches.
What a dick. Mrs. Reed somehow doesn't understand why DW would pretend to be sick when she gets to have everything she wants and has Arthur as her own personal bitch boy. Arthur tries to catch her in the act with a hidden camera.
I'm scared to close my eyes. I'm scared to open them.
Francine has no sympathy for Arthur, until she sees just how whipped he is by his baby sister. Francine decides to intervene, as Arthur is only allowed to be her cuck. Arthur and crew gaslight DW into thinking she's gone deaf, causing her to break her vow of silence. Mrs. Reed is now wise to DW's scheme, though once again, we never see her get punished. Arthur is relieved DW can talk again, until he realizes DW can talk again. And despite appearing at the start of the episode, Mr. Reed is nowhere to be found, because as soon as DW got sick, he probably left to go fuck Mr. Ratburn. The dude married an aardvark who's also a chef. Ratburn definitely has a type, or at least a cooking fetish. Let's review. DW exploited her illness to get everything she wanted. After she got better, she continued to scam her family out of house and home for a whole week. When Arthur caught on to her scheme, DW used her mother's blind trust to gaslight Arthur into being her own cuck berry. And even after her scheme was exposed, she went right back to torturing Arthur with her whiny, ear-bleeding voice. And if you think I'm being too mean to the voice actor for DW, just keep in mind that of the 8 kids who voiced DW, every single one of them were boys. Merry Christmas, and F-U-D-W.
And I say, hey, what a wonderful kind of day. And I say, hey.
It's New Year's Eve, and DW is getting a head start on being a pain in the ass for next year. She begs her mom to let her stay up till midnight, because 4-year-olds definitely don't have a habit of staying up past their bedtime. Mrs. Reed says DW is too young to stay up, leading to the most bizarre fourth wall break in the show.
It's like I never get any older. What if I'm trapped in some kind of time warp and I'll never get any older? Is that my fault?
After several failed attempts, Arthur decides he doesn't want to stay up this year, which sets off all of DW's sus alarms. Arthur claims he's just too mature, which is a word DW doesn't know. Shocker. Arthur goes around town to find out the true meaning of New Year's. Who cares? Arthur comes home to find DW pinching herself and dumping ice cubes down her back. He reminds her she's too young to stay up, which DW takes as a personal challenge. The Reed parents leave Grandma Thora in charge for the night, so DW goes into full kiss-ass mode. She stays up past her bedtime, making several excuses to leave her room. Grandma Thora falls for DW's BS and allows her to stay up with Arthur. It's a minute to midnight, and Arthur is dead-ass asleep. DW and Grandma Thora celebrate the new year by watching an alarm clock go off. Is their TV broken? Who celebrates New Year's like this? Feeling ripped off, DW blows off her grandma and decides to go to bed, but not before gaslighting Arthur into thinking he's missed the best New Year's ever.
I saw New Year's and you didn't. Big explosions and giant mules jumping off cliffs into the ocean. Wow, it was fantastic.
What a dick. Grandma Thora assures Arthur the new year will be full of hopes and promises. like the hope that DW will be less annoying, and the promise that I'll keep making these videos as long as you keep watching them. Let's review. DW disobeyed her parents' wishes and decided to stay up till midnight just to spite her brother. To make herself stay awake, she made a complete ass of herself and manipulated her grandma to get what she wanted. When the New Year's celebration didn't live up to her expectations, she accused her grandma of ripping her off. And even after she got exactly what she wanted, she still had to rub it in Arthur's face. And the Reed parents didn't make it home till the next morning, because their New Year's party was just a cover story, and they actually spent the night having a threesome with Mr. Ratburn. Happy New Year! And F you, DW.
And I say, hey, what a wonderful kind of day.
Might as well try re-recording it now that the wind has died down.